just going to talk about the domain and the range. So the domain is actually the values of x. The values of x for which a function is true for. Now, the best way to look at the domain and range is to actually sketch the function. There's another way too, that's where you look at the restrictions on the function, but it's easier if you can sketch it to sketch it first. So for example, y equals x squared plus 2. If you sketch that, that means it's a parabola and you go up 2. So when you're looking at the domain here, you're looking for the values of x for which it is true. So if you look here, you've got negative x, you've got curve, positive x, you've got curve, and at 0, you've got curve. So basically the domain would be all real x. And if you write that in interval notation, it's, it goes like that, minus infinity to infinity. Okay, so let's just have a look at another one. So let's look at, say, this one here, which is your hyperbola. So if you're going to sketch that, it's the basic shape of a hyperbola is like, it's like that. Because it's a minus 2, it's going to go to the right to minus 2. And then you dot that down there. So it's going to go here and here. So then you put in x equals 0, and you get 1 over 0 plus 2, which is a half, which is probably unimportant if we're getting the domain anyway. So what values of x is it true for? So it's true for all the x's that are down this way, down here. It's true for all the positive x's. It's true for all these x's in here, all the way up to minus 2, but it's not true at minus 2. And if you look at it just by looking at the denominator, you can see that you can put any value of x into here, any value, so any value of x will go in there. But if you put in minus 2 into there, you're going to get minus 2 plus 2, which is 1 over 0, which is then undefined for the y value. So therefore, it is actually it's all real x, except x equals minus 2, okay? And in interval notation, you go from minus infinity up to minus 2, and then you go from minus 2 up to infinity. Now I put the u in there, that means union, because it means all of this and all of this. So u means union, and union means all of the interval. Whereas, so if you have A union B, that means all of A and all of B. But if you go like that, that means intersection. So A intersection B. So that's where they happen together. That's why you wouldn't put an intersection there. You could just go minus infinity to minus 2 as well, comma, minus 2 to infinity as well, as your interval notation. So when you're looking at the range is the values of y for which a function is true. So say you have y equals x squared minus 4. So that's a parabola. You go down to minus 4. That will be minus 2 and minus 2. So what values of y is it true for? Now you look, there's no graph below here, so there's no y values below minus 4. There are y values at minus 4. And you can see as you keep going up, you've got y values all the way up to infinity. So therefore the range would be from -4 up to infinity, but not equal to infinity. If you had it in the other form of notation, is y is greater than or equal to -4. Okay, so let's look at another one. Let's look at 2 to the x, for example. If we drew that, it would look like that. Put in x equals 0, y is 2 to the 0, so it goes through 1. So what values of y is this true for? So if you look at this, you've got no y down here below, no y at the x-axis, but just as you get above the x-axis, that's where you start to get y values. So the x-axis is actually where y equals 0. So it's greater than 0, but not equal to 0. And if you did it in interval notation, it would be 0, and then you go up to infinity. So finally, let's just look at one more graph. Let's look at y equals 4 on x minus 2 plus 3. Okay, so we're going to find the domain and we're going to find the range of this. So the domain, okay, so let's just sketch it first. So if you go to the right 2, and then you go up to 3, and it's a positive hyperbola, so it's there and there. So that's your basic sketch. So when you're looking at the domain of this, and we're looking at, okay, for what values of x is it true? So we've got curve down here. So we've got negative x, we've got 0, all the way up to 2. And then we have nothing at 2. And then we go back again, and then we go anything greater than 2. Yep, we've got curve. See the curve up the top there. So we have x values for everything except x equals 2. Because at the point where x equals 2, you'll notice that it will be undefined. See? You get 4 on 0 plus 3, so that's undefined. So if you're going to write an interval notation, it's going from minus infinity up to 2, and then from 2 up to infinity. You could also use the union stuff if you wanted to use that notation. Okay, or you could go all real x except x equals minus 2. Okay, so for the range, we're going to go the other way. So for the range, you can see you get numbers above 3 because we have a curve there. When you get below 3, yeah, we have a curve there. But when you're actually at 3, they're here, you can see that the curve never actually cuts it. So for the range, here it's all real y, but y equals 3. We could go minus infinity to 3, and then we go 3 to infinity. Or we could go minus infinity to 3 and use the union 3 to infinity.